Good evening and welcome to the FASET Parent Panel discussion hosted by the Office of Parent and Family Programs. My name is Tyler Barker. I am the coordinator for Parent and Family Programs here at Georgia Tech, working to connect and engage parents to Georgia Tech. Today I will serve as your moderator for this panel. We are so excited to have you here with us today and welcome to you and your students to the Georgia Tech family. We also hope that you and your loved ones are safe during these uncertain times. As a reminder, if you have questions that have not been asked throughout the panel, please feel free to message us through our Q&A chat box through the Blue Jeans feature. We will do our very best to field all the questions throughout this hour that we have. I would like to say as well, please note that Georgia Tech may still be working on plans for next semester as it relates to COVID-19 specific questions. So some questions may not be answered during this time. To learn more about information on how Georgia Tech is monitoring the coronavirus, please visit health.gatech.edu/coronavirus. There you will find helpful and important information about how Georgia Tech is monitoring the coronavirus and how we are putting plans in place to go through in the fall. To begin our panel discussion, we have 4 panelists here today who have taken their time, who are current parents, who have students doing very great things here at Georgia Tech. I would like for them to introduce themselves. So we'll start with Lena, then we'll go to Alex, and then we'll go to the Warwicks. Lena, if you could just introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your student and where y'all are from.
My name is Lana. My daughter's name is Natalie. She will be a 4th year student at the College of Business. I think I'm representing the out-of-state parents here today. Natalie goes to Georgia Tech from Tampa, Florida.
Thank you, Lena.
Go Blue Jays.
Okay. My name's Alex Rosello, and I have a daughter going to Georgia Tech, Christina. She's actually in her final last 2 classes.
Hello, Alex. Can you hear me?
Did he freeze?
Yeah.
No,
It's gonna be us.
he froze.
Technical.
Oh, we lost him.
He'll be joining us back shortly. Lena, if you could just touch on a few things that your student is involved in.
Yes. She is involved in Greek life. She didn't start that until her 2nd year. She's also been involved in the Society for Women in Business, and she played club volleyball, and she did an international semester abroad, which was a very good experience for her as well.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It seems that we have Alex back joining us. Alex, if you can just touch on a little bit about Christina, what year she is, where y'all are from, and some of her involvement on campus.
Alex is freezing. Get ready.
You know, I can hear you, right?
Yeah, I do.
Ready to go.
It's only right that we have technical difficulties at Georgia Tech, right? What we'll do is move on to the Warwicks. If you can, just tell us a little bit about yourselves, your student, where y'all are from, and some of the things that she's been involved
Well,
Yeah, okay.
mm,
Brian and Royce Warwick, our daughter Peyton is 2nd year. She will be a 2nd year at Georgia Tech, and she's majoring in aerospace engineering. She is involved in a number of things, including club soccer, and that's a great experience. We're from New Jersey, Mount Laurel, New Jersey, Southern Jersey. So yes, we're bringing it in from outside of Georgia as well, and had a great experience thus far. And at some point, hopefully, she will be able to take advantage of study abroad. She was supposed to be in Barcelona in August, but that plans have changed. So that will happen at some point for sure.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Seems like we have Alex back with us. If you wouldn't mind just once again, just sharing a little bit about Christina.
Got on Christina's laptop.
Yeah.
We can't hear you. You're on mute.
We have you muted, Alex. think you're still muted.
Headphones. Yeah. Still on
Can
mute.
you unmute him as the organizer, Tyler
Yes, Lacey can unmute him.
or Lacey?
I can't
There we
see
There
go.
we go.
There we go.
There we go.
Just take the
Uh-oh.
headphones off. Just take the headphones off and just talk.
Unplug.
Yeah, unplug the headphones.
Unplug them.
No.
Interesting.
Tyler, just go ahead and move on and they can come back. Go ahead and move
Okay.
on.
What we'll do, just for the sake of time, we apologize for the technical difficulties. What we're going to do is just move on to our panelists that we have here. Alex will be joining us shortly. My first question is for you, Lena. And the question is, how do you discuss academic progress with your student? Does your student show you their grades at the end of each semester? What is that process like for you and your family?
Natalie talks freely about upcoming exams and is always telling me what she thought. Did she do well? Was it more difficult than she expected? She shares what she expects she's going to get in the class if she gets this or that sort of final project grade, and does tell me what her grades are. But I will say I have never seen that written anywhere. I have seen that she's made the honor roll. That I have seen in writing and received an email, but I actually have not ever seen her transcript online. I've not ever tried to do that, trusting that she's taking care of things.
Great, great. The next question is, how often do you communicate with your student? And what is that process like? Do you talk every Sunday, text every Tuesday? How is it transitioning for a high school parent to sort of communicate with your student? You're going to be so busy now with your class schedule. How is that like for you, Lena?
I would say actually I communicate more with Natalie now as a third year going into a fourth year student than I did right at the very beginning. Being a freshman was all consuming for her. Every night I would get texts at odd hours of this or that. Sometimes, did I bring such and such, or can you send me such and such? We're actually more in regular contact now. I let her take the lead with that. I had heard from friends that setting up like text every night at 10 o'clock sort of things didn't work well and left some parents really frustrated. And I heard from my daughter it left some students very frustrated as well. I let her sort of determine how often she could get a hold of us. But when I didn't hear from her for a few days sometimes, I did send a picture of our cats. And that was a tip I'd heard from someone else, and particularly about boys who sometimes I guess are not as communicative, that sometimes the text of the cute puppy or the family bird or whatever can get a response if in fact you need to know they're still.
That's very smart. That's very smart, Lena. Very smart. I'm sure a lot of parents are taking notes on that. Hey, Alex, it seems that you're back with us. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Welcome.
Yay, finally.
What
Sorry
we'll
about
do-
that.
No, it's okay. What we'll do is get you to introduce yourself really quickly. Just talk a little bit about Christina and what she's involved in, and then I'll give you a chance to answer the next question.
Okay. And real quick, Alex Rosello, and live in the Marietta area, and Christina is in her final year, actually taking her last 2 classes before she gets her degree. And she's actually got a job, so I always jokingly say she will be off the mom and dad's payroll by this fall. So, and be earning her own salary and income. She's working on her chemical engineering degree, and she's also been involved in a professional fraternity and co-ed fraternity. She's also done a study abroad in Barcelona, Spain. Gosh, that's probably close to 2 years ago now, and we actually went to go visit her there as well. So she got to practice some of her Spanish, and she's also been involved in the office as a mentor and officer in the chemical engineering department. So, and so, like I said, she's looking forward to, I think, less than 30 days before she finishes her degree or classes.
Got to start the countdown. It's awesome. So the question that I have for you is, how often do you communicate with Christina? What is that process like, especially going back to her first year? What are some tips on communication that you have for our parents joining the call today?
Well, I mean, Christina was maybe actually pretty good with communicating with us. We reached out to her at times, but actually she was pretty good at reaching out to us. And we didn't try to go visit her too much down in campus, even though we're relatively close, about half an hour, 45 minutes away with traffic. But we gave her the space, that she needs as she's going into. I mean, I know officially she's been an adult since 18, but that college experience is something that you want. But I think things that help communicate is see what help she needs, things going, anything you need from us, and especially being relatively close, there's things that we can get down to her pretty quickly in helping her out in whatever she needed. So those are the ways that we felt that we could try to create some kind of a two-way communication. But she has a great relationship with her mom. I mean, I think she has a good relationship with me, but her and her mom are really ones that talk a lot, and they really enjoy it. So they really actually did that very naturally, for both of them.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And to you, the Warwicks, how has communication been for you? Just a year ago, you were in the shoes of many of these parents, and now that you've got some experience in the game, how's that process been over the fall and the spring about communication? I think you're muted, Brian.
Because I didn't do it.
All right. Well, communication has been great for us because Peyton has two older siblings who graduated from college. She communicates with them as well as us. So we don't want to overdo it as parents. We know she's talking to her sisters as well, so we get information from them as well.
Yeah, now one of the points is that, every child is different. So, Peyton is really communicative and she wants to reach out. Our middle daughter was somewhere in between. Our oldest daughter, I was trying to get her to call at least once a week. So it's all very different, just depending on the child. And there are different ways to set up. Since we are far away, we made a point of setting up a network close to her, close to Peyton. And so we have friends and like family in the area. And so we connected her with a lot of people in the Atlanta area so that she would have that kind of safety net and feel that comfort, even though her family was, 2 hours away on a plane. And so that was really important for us and for her.
Great. Awesome. The next question that we have is, should my student co-op? Should my student think about internships? Should my student get involved in Greek life or different organizations on campus? If your students have gotten involved, what has that done for them? How have they benefited since their time at Georgia Tech?
I'll start.
Go ahead, Lana.
Two things. One, I expected that my daughter would participate in very much the same sorts of things she did in high school. And it was interesting to me that she didn't necessarily do that. In fact, two of the things she got involved with, I would have never predicted. So I think that college gives a much broader opportunity and young people get to try new things. In both cases, she's had tremendous opportunities for leadership, which is very valuable. And I think some of that leadership helped her get two very good internships, one last year between her second and third year, and one this summer between her third and fourth year. Those particular organizations, companies were looking for students who had gone above and beyond simply showing up in class and studying and getting great grades. I think the leadership that can come from being involved in extracurricular activities both helps personal growth and it definitely helps if you want to say, pad the resume for the future.
Great.
And to add, I agree with that 100%. I think Christina's internship that she did last summer is something that she can easily add to her resume. Gave her some skills around leadership, how to work with others, how to communicate with others, and get comfortable in the workforce. And I think that's something that, like, Lana said, pad the resume. Also joining, the professional fraternity or co-ed fraternity was something that gave her some experience on leading certain events or leading certain committees in that. So I think it's a great way, and also a great way to meet people, and people with maybe some common goals or common, and also a variety of people, because being in college, you have a diverse amount of people from all types of lives, and so it's a great way to meet all kinds of people, and she really enjoyed it.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing. And lastly, to the Warwicks.
Yeah, so Peyton, and we mentioned initially that she was on the club soccer team. She is a part of, and I guess was, because a global leadership living learning community was first year. And she's also involved in Society Women Engineers. And so what we were trying to do was to strike a balance between, because we know that the first year it's just different because it's first year in college and it's away from home, but it's Georgia Tech too. So we want her to have that balance, but not it spread herself too thin. But just having those experiences really is helping to develop her more. And giving her a more rich experience, and she'll continue to do that. So you just have to be able to strike the balance, and your student will learn to do that. That's just a part of that whole transition of that process of maturation. And so I think you have to do that. And she went to football games, and she enjoyed it because she was right across the street from the stadium, basically. So she could hear it from her dorm, so she may as well show up every now and again, and she did. So that was. The whole experience is just making her a more well-rounded adult.
Great. That's awesome. So glad she can get involved. So it seems that we have some questions in our Q&A, so we'll kind of transition to those. The first question is for the Warwicks and Lena. Speaking to out-of-state parents, what has worked best in terms of moving in and out of housing at the end of the year? Where do you keep your child's belongings? We'll start with the Warwicks first.
Well, this year is a bit of a fire drill. She left for spring break and she hasn't returned, and so I think this will be a unique circumstance. And so Georgia Tech put into place a process whereby you could have your dorm room, for those of us who lived far away. We couldn't go there and get her and clean out her room. I guess we could have, but we didn't. It was a long 13-hour drive, and we didn't do that. And so, but Georgia Tech provided companies that would do that for you. So her belongings, her roommate lives close by. She emptied her stuff out. And then later through the school, we contracted with a vendor to get her stuff and put it in storage. And so that's where it is now. Had that not, had COVID not sort of forced us to do this more quickly, we would have gone in and, put it in storage anyway. And so that was our plan. That's what we would have done. I don't know, Lana, that what you guys did through the years, but that's what we would have done that anyway. It was just, it was kind of uncertain and fast this time.
My daughter went to Georgia Tech and never returned to Florida. So we have had a store. We stayed there from the first summer on, had a job and subleased an apartment, and now has an apartment with right there by Georgia Tech. But we did the same thing. We got the storage unit for the time that she went to study abroad. There was just, at that point, she'd been 2 years already away from home. She had gathered quite a bit of stuff in Atlanta, and to get that, we would have literally had to rent a U-Haul to drive it back to bring it home. So we also have a small storage unit.
Thank you so much. And the next question that we have is for you as well. I think this could pertain to you, Lana. I'm not sure if your student has, since she's older, or even your older student commuting? Did they drive to campus from their off-campus apartment? Did they use MARTA? What was that process like, living off campus and commuting to campus?
Well, my daughter literally lives like a block from Scheller Business School. She lives right there in what the many apartments that are along Spring Street. She does not have a car. She walks to campus. She eats all of her meals on campus at her sorority house. She and her friends take Uber when they actually need to go somewhere with wheels. I think of all of her friends, maybe one has a vehicle. It's very expensive to park them in the private housing. I think it's also expensive and difficult to park a car, at least to park it nearby if you live on campus. So she has been car free.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Alex, would you touch on Christina's experience as well? I think that's the million-dollar question. Do I send a car? Do I not send a car? What is that like?
I mean, personally, the campus has so many things around it and so close that a lot of things are within walking distance. And then with the MARTA stations nearby that you can easily jump on the bus there to go to, so you can easily get to the airport or some other key areas in the city. And then with today's, youth using, and even including myself, because I'm young, Uber and, and stuff like that, a lot of these kids can get around easily without having a car. Christina actually had a car in her last year, and really the only driver for us to have her car there, which she did say, oh, it was nice to have that car, is that she started working part-time for the company that she did the summer internship. And so she had to go to office or some sites for the company. So it was much easier for her to hop in a car, drive over to Cummings or drive over to Macon, that she might do some work there for a couple hours and then drive back. So that's really the only driver. But personally, I think you can live without a car on campus easily. The only maybe benefit I would say is if maybe you live a few hours away driving, let's say you live down in Macon or something, it might be beneficial to have a car because that way much easier to get back home to family for holidays or any other special occasions.
Thank you for sharing that. The next question that we have for the Warwicks, I'll start with you. How pushy have you been regarding things they don't know yet to ask about, like making the deadline for requesting housing next year, scheduling for your classes for the next year, financial aid deadlines? The parent is saying, my son is responsible, but for the first year, there are just so many things that students don't know about. So how have you been as a parent to help them stay on top of things that they need to stay on top of?
That's a really good question. And that first year, in addition to really focusing on the academics and figuring out which buildings you have to be, where you have to be, and how you get there, and so there is a lot. And hitting those deadlines, we did leave it to Peyton. Georgia Tech is very good, though, about get on those mailing lists, those distribution lists for email, because the school is really great about helping you stay on top of deadlines and helping your family and your student. So we are getting a lot of the same information that she's getting in terms of deadlines. So that helps us stay coordinated on that. But it's kind of driving a discipline of really getting your to-do lists in order and just staying on top of it, because that part of that growth journey it's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. So the better organized you are, and as you're working as a team from home, and the student there and the school providing that information, you got to get plugged into that, because that's really, really quite important, and it gives you peace of mind. So you're not so worried about sort of missing a deadline, because you kind of know what they are. I mean, you want the student to take some responsibility, but obviously you don't want to miss. And the school helps to keep everything, keep you in line and informed. There are also calendars, but there are ways to stay coordinated. And we have our, the calendar ourselves, and we're, as much as we're encouraging kind of independence and making sure that you check off those boxes, we're the safety net too, and school really helps us keep that infrastructure connected.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. And that's actually a great comment. So in our office, everyone, we have a parent calendar that has several different important dates, deadlines that you can have access to. If you don't have access to our calendar, please email us at parents@gatech.edu. Or if you're not currently on our mailing list, we can help you getting on that as well. So like I said, just send us an email, parents@gatech.edu, and we'll make sure that you have all the information that you need. I did want to just get a response from Atlanta to see how deadlines and monitoring, that communication, how has that been for you and your daughter?
The first thing I thought of when I heard you read that question was that the writer said, that the student doesn't know about. And my sense of it was that my student was very much aware, being told, as Royce said, in a number of ways, getting texts, being told in class, being told by email, that my student was aware of what needed to be done. And so I could also be aware, as Ms. Warwick went through, but the communication Georgia Tech had with its own student, with my daughter, was pretty clear. I don't remember that she ever felt like, I didn't know. I mean, she knew what needed to be done and in what time frame. She had good direction on that. So I was more, I would say, checking in because maybe I knew also. So then I was like, hey, did you do that? And she's like, yeah, I got all the stuff emailed, blah, 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 because she had the information.
Right.
To the good.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Seems that we have one more question, and I'll actually take this question. Will finals for the first semester be online or in person? So as my director, Lacey Whedon, touched on in the Q&A box, I'm not sure if everybody can see it, but I will read the response. Georgia Tech has a task force of campus individuals who are charged with determining best practices for Georgia Tech returning to campus in person. And so the task force is working on this matter right now currently. Our current recommendation is for your student to contact their faculty to determine if the final will be online or in person. But most likely your final will be online. We're just waiting on final confirmation. And so I can say from the Institute, we will have more information in regards to your student's final schedule within the next couple of weeks. So just be patient for that. And like I said, through our mailing list, we will get that information to you promptly. The next question that we have, I'll go to you, Alex. As a parent, how have you felt about campus safety? I think this is a really unique question considering that all three of you have daughters at the moment.
I mean, I feel I felt that my daughter was very safe on campus. I mean, you have to be smart as well, not be out in the middle of the night by yourself. And I know she's always made sure. And one of the things like I said, with today's technology with using Uber, anytime she was out late that was off campus, she would make sure with friends she'd be using Uber so as not to be walking alone or with even a small group in the middle of nowhere. But within campus, you have, I mean, I know a lot of the students love the campus police there. They feel like they're very good. They're a very, very good police force, very, intuitive to the students. And then also at the same time, you have the bus services, and they have, I think, the DoorDash, I think it's called, so if you're out late studying somewhere near campus, you can call a DoorDash. They can come literally pick you up in front of the door of the library and take you directly to your dorm room, to the door. So that way, if you're out in the middle of the night because you were preparing for that test, you have, so I feel very confident in the 4.5 years that she's been there. She's never felt unsafe. And I think most students should feel that way on campus.
Thank you for sharing that, Alex. Very, very helpful information. Next, and actually, just for clarification, the app is called Live Safe. And so, just for clarification, the app is
Thank
called.
you.
No problem. Okay.
What's it called again? What's it called, Tyler?
It's called Live safe.
Oh, live safe. Okay.
Tyler, I just want to point out one thing because the parents are not having the opportunity to be at FASET, and the Georgia Tech Police Department was there, and they shared their expression about how they want safety and how well they were visible on campus. And also the point that I think they just built a new station, correct?
Yes, brand
On
new
campus, brand new station. They have more officers, and they just reassured me at the time that my daughter's going to be safe on campus. You know, Alex spoke to you need to be smart when you're off campus, obviously, and do the right things. But on campus, it's going to be safe. And it's a shame that all the parents out there can't hear that speech that we heard from the police.
Atlanta, with you being from out of state as well, would you like to touch on just safety and about your daughter's experience?
I would echo what both of the other parents have said. She is very comfortable there, and we lived, in a very suburban, what you think is safe when you're raising your child. So it was very different for her to come to an urban campus. She feels safe. She has nothing but really good things to say from a couple sort of broad experiences with the Georgia Tech Police Department. Also, I think that sometimes we don't understand that 11 o'clock at night on a college campus is a pretty busy time. I think, oh, she's walking home from the library at 11. And sometimes she'll call and she's talking to people all along, people she knows, people she's. So we have to remember that there are a lot of students in a pretty small area. They know each other. It's hard to be alone on campus at Georgia Tech. And that has been a source of security for me.
Great. Thank you all for sharing that. Seems that we have one more question coming in. How is the food on campus? Are there healthy choices for your students to choose from? We'll start with Alex, if you want to just touch on that.
I mean, I believe there's healthy choices. Now, will the kids take responsibility and take the healthy choices? Probably not. but yeah, there is a nice variety of food. They do have some various restaurants, but of course, some kids, hey, let me go get Chick-fil-A, and yeah, chicken's good for you, but then they'll get the French fries. So, or the fried chicken versus the grilled chicken. But yeah, I think there's a nice amount of choices around campus to have some healthy decisions of eating versus everything fried.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I'll switch it over to the Warwicks. How has eating on campus been for your student?
Yeah, I mean, it's been good. I mean, there are healthy choices. She's not real picky. So, and she doesn't have a special diet, and she's not, vegan or anything like that. So if I can't speak to those, the availability of that type of meals selection, yeah. But otherwise, I mean, salads and chicken and grilled this, and it doesn't have to be fried. And yes, she likes Chick-fil-A too, but there are other options as well. And so she never, she said that the food was good. She never complained about it. And she just really wanted a salad. She wanted salad availability, and that was there. And you find where there are different cafeterias or eating areas that offer different types of cuisine, and so you find what you like, and you tend to go there, and that's what she did.
Yeah, I would like to say that our Georgia Tech dining does pride ourselves in being diverse and accessible to our different dietary needs of our students. Most of our dining halls are already equipped to handle the top 7 allergens. We do have a full-time dietitian and nutritionist on campus. And so if you have a student out there who has a special dietary needs, please email us at parents@gatech.edu so we can connect you with dining, connect you with the dietitian and the nutritionist, so that way that they can get a good meal plan that is equipped for your student. Next question that we have is for Atlanta. So we don't know yet the method of delivery for freshman classes, but if they are online, from your experience of conversations with your student, which favorite places have you heard for studying other than the library? Also, a recommendation to enjoy first year with less events available. So it seems like it's a two-part question. So what are some places that your daughter likes to study at on campus outside of the library?
I know that she stayed in Howell Hall her freshman year, which Peyton is on the football stadium side. And there are study rooms all over in those buildings as well. And she often studied with other friends in study rooms in the building, particularly late at night. Like maybe they'd go to the library, then they'd come back, then kind of take a little break, and then study for another hour. And the apartment community she lives in now also has a lot of set up study rooms. So that is something out there wherever lives, they'll be able to find that. And Starbucks is packed all the time. If it's open, there will be large amounts of students there day and night. So,
Alex, would you like to touch on where Christina sometimes likes to study?
Well, I mean, other than the library, I think two of her favorite places, one being a chemical engineering degree, she would study the Ford building, which is, of course, one of the chemical engineering facilities. And then also, I think it's pronounced the Coke, I think it's pronounced, right? I know it's not spelled that way, but that's another place. And that's where one of the Starbucks was located. So not that Christina was not a big coffee drinker, but she liked hot chocolate, so which has caffeine as well. So at least it helped her stay awake for late nights. But those are her two favorite places to study other than the library.
Great, that's awesome. And I would like to say as well that just from my time working on campus, Georgia Tech is more of a traditional green campus. So I know you think that Georgia Tech is very modern and there isn't that much green space, but being in Midtown Atlanta, we are fortunate to have a great traditional landscape amongst our campus. And with me saying that is that oftentimes students will just study outside. There are several benches, tables, patio chairs, and things of that sort. Students really love just taking advantage of the outdoors. We'll also see students take a blanket to Tech Green and maybe just sit on Tech Green with their laptop, read a book, study some notes or what have you. So Georgia Tech students also take advantage of the outdoors as well. And it's also a great opportunity to meet other students when you're outdoors and just socializing as well. One more question. What have you learned about your student during this quarantine that can be beneficial for the parent to student relationship once classes resume in the fall? I know that many of you, the panelists, and many of the attendees have been spending a lot of time with their students due to the quarantine. So what is something that you learned, something that you didn't know that you're so like, hey, like I really like this, and I think that this can be beneficial for our relationship going forward? I'll start with the Warwicks.
Yeah. You want me to go?
We're going to stay muted while we think this over.
I'll go first. I think that the fact that Peyton had been away and she's come back and you can see the maturity. She's grown as an individual, and she just feels more self-confident because she's done well and she's had growth being out there by herself. So I think your student the freshmen become more confident as they're out there on their own. There's a lot to handle. They're doing well. Georgia Tech provides a lot of resources to help them. They know their parents are helping them at home as well. And when she came back, she just looked and to me felt like she was more reassured about being away at Tech. And she's like, I'm ready to go back. I'm tired of being home. I'm ready to go back. And in a way, that was good. I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, she, one thing is clear is in terms of the, just the push and how they push themselves, she feels guilty at first about going to bed before midnight. Gee, maybe I can go to bed. I said, well, maybe you can. You can get, you can get some rest. But you kind of get a sense as to how intense it was. And she really does, she has grown. And it's just a joy to see that maturity and how she's grown, because, you know, I guess she was 18 when she left.
She was.
But still, like this, she was our baby, and still is. But she's, you know, but you see that growth, and you recognize how big. People told us before. We talked to so many people about Georgia Tech, and they were like, listen, this is like really going to be something. It's going to be hard. And it is. And because that's what Georgia Tech, that's what we want. We want them to be able to stretch. And it was hard. Mm-hmm. But with, she got through it, with all of us. And she did it. And so that's the beauty of them getting through that first year, second year, third year, and about to graduate. I mean, that's just awesome. Because we send them to you guys, to Georgia Tech for that growth, mm-hmm. and to be able to watch it, and, you know, you're holding on, and then they start to soar. So it's beautiful. It's great.
Thank you all for sharing that. That's awesome that she's had such a great chance for growth and maturity. That's really great to hear. That's what we pride ourselves on. Lana, did you want to touch on it?
I think what I didn't understand fully is how important the social aspect of college, even if it's the group work in a class, was to my daughter. And sometimes she would be super pressed, like you use that word, and then she'd yet say, well, and then I'm going to do such and such. I'm going to have coffee with this friend or this. And I was like, can't let that stuff go. You know, keep focused. You got these things to do. But when all of that social ability went away, she missed it intensely. And I hope that I remember that when the year starts again and I hear her say, oh, I've got too much to do, but I'm still going to fit in this time with these friends. I haven't seen them for a long time. I'm going to be more understanding that for her, that it feeds her. It doesn't take away from her. It actually gives her more energy. And I didn't really get that before, seeing her so isolated from other people. So that will be my takeaway in the future.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a really great nugget that any and all parents can use. Social engagement is important because, like you said, it is a release for students, because you're talking to peers. You have peers who are going through the same thing that you're going through, and so why not talk about it over a cup of coffee? You know, kind of just relax and take your mind off things. So I think that's really great that you shared that. Alex, would you like to touch on it?
It's really just adding to the Warwicks and Lana in the sense of that it's really, you saw that maturity. She's able to manage her time, and it's not like us telling her, hey, go do this, go do that, or prepare for a test. You just saw her scheduling her week, her month for what she needed to get done for the following week or so, and she's just managing it all by herself, knowing her workload, because we saw that in her last semester, where she had definitely a much heavier workload because she was taking more classes, and in this summer we have 2 classes. So you saw that where she's just doing it all on her own. And to Lana's point, yeah, you could see she was missing some of the social. So you could see that balance of, I'm still getting my work done. And yes, at times I could be a little overwhelmed, but at this time, let me meet up with some friends for a cup. Well, she wouldn't drink coffee, but a hot chocolate or go get a pizza or whatever, or maybe a salad, hopefully something healthy. But, but she would go do that and balance that appropriately without really impacting her school workload, and still getting, decent grades. So I saw that, and without her being overwhelmed, because I remember her first year, she seemed a little overwhelmed. And I think it's a shock of, oh my gosh, this is a little bit harder than high school, even though she did really good in high school, because I would think probably 99% of these kids coming into Georgia Tech, being a tough university, looking for top level students, are probably pretty much all straight A students or a handful of B's here and there. and and some of them might even came easy to get those A's in high school. And I'm not saying the high school wasn't challenging, but they come into Georgia Tech, it's like, this is a lot more challenging. But that's where it stretched them, got them to challenge themselves and still do a good job. You know.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. The next question, I'll start it back with you, Alex. So as we all know, college isn't all peachy, I guess you would say. There are some challenges. There are some downtimes. There are some setbacks that you just may encounter throughout this school year. So as a parent, what advice do you give to other parents about how to encourage your student from afar, from home, when things aren't going so well? What is that like, when you notice that?
Well, what we try to do is just, you got to overcome those challenges. And I said, sometimes you're going to have setbacks. There's that time you're going to get a bad grade in the test, or maybe even more than one test. But don't let those setbacks slow you down. Go get the help that you need. I know there was some classes that Christina had some challenges on it, and she did much better than I did in college, where it's not only did she, okay, I'm going to do harder and study harder, but she went and got help. One of my problems when I was in college, I wasn't that type to go get help. She went and met with the professor, met with the TA, went to the study sessions, went and did everything possible to say, I'm going to learn this subject or this material to make sure I get a decent grade. So that's one of the things that I saw her learn relatively quickly in her freshman year. Where she did have some challenges because she was one of those students, straight A's with a handful of B's, and telling, okay, these courses are a little bit harder than what I saw in high school. And so we said, don't let those setbacks slow you down. Figure out ways to overcome those setbacks, and what do you need to do to improve? And so those are the things that we tried to communicate to her and get, hopefully get into her head.
Royce or Brian?
I'd add to that, and Lana and Alex know this as well, just being a part of the parents board, of the resources that are available that the university offers students. And they really pride themselves on that infrastructure of support for promoting and supporting the mental health of the students. And that was just fantastic when you hear just the depth and the breadth of those resources for students. And you've got to encourage, number one, know about them, make sure that your student knows about them, and encourage to tap into it, because I just think it's absolutely stellar what the university has to offer, and just encouraging tapping into those resources, whatever they might be, and going for help. Because what you'll find, and what Peyton found, was that that professors, they really want to talk to you. They're there, and they want to help. And just going and seeking them out has been great. And that has never been an issue of finding them and getting that time with them. They're there and available. And upperclassmen, the older students, are just really willing. Everybody's willing to help you through, because it is different. You come from Georgia Tech as a bunch of high school stars that are coming to Georgia Tech, and it's different, and it's upping that the ante and the bar, and so you got to take advantage of all those resources, because they're there for a reason. And I just did encourage folks to understand them and know what's there and what's available.
Great. Awesome. The next question that we have, I'll start with Lana. As an out-of-state parent, how long can I wait to book air travel for the fall semester? So I think that this parent is coming from the aspect that they know that the end of the semester in terms of their finals is up in the air. But however, in a typical year, what was booking travel like back home? And how late did you wait to book your travel?
The finals schedules came out, I think, by mid-semester. I don't ever remember feeling that we were desperate, like we're going to be paying full price or something for a flight. There was ample time. There must have been at least 6 or 8 weeks, I think. And the schedule, if you've had a student in college before, you know it'll be very specific. Now, there are professors that the syllabus will absolutely say there is no final. It's a final project. It's due on the last day of class. So those things are known. It's not a surprise. Those things are known.
Okay, so overall, there wasn't any stress to.
I don't remember that being stressful at all.
Okay, cool. Royce or Brian, did you want to touch on that as well, being an out-of-state family? What in the fall, what that booking, the travel was like?
It was never really a problem for us because, again, we used the calendar, and so we knew what was coming up. The only thing that was a little tricky was knowing when to book her travel to come home, trying to, play the odds on whether or not that professor really is going to have that course on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, and maybe you come home the Tuesday or the Monday. So that was the only real challenge there. But otherwise, and we booked accordingly. So you never were, as Lana said, in a position where you're kind of scrambling at the last minute, unless you just forgot to book because you know what the schedule is.
Great. That's awesome. Thank you all for sharing that. Next question that we have here before we begin to wrap up is for Mr. Alex. So looking back on it, what is one thing that you would have done differently in your student's first year that you know now because of your experience and you're seasoned? So what is some advice that you can give, sort of like a shortcut tips of
Don't apply too much pressure is my thinking. Yeah, there's a balance between, hey, you want to push them, but at the same time, you don't want to apply too much pressure. And I think I was so worried about her losing her, Hope scholarship and Zell Miller scholarship that I applied maybe a little too much pressure. And I think it overwhelmed her that first semester. And of course, my loving wife also told me you need to back off a little bit. So she enlightened me. So I think with that, I think it needs a balance of, yeah, you want to push her, or push them, but you don't want to push them too hard, because you want them to go through some of their setbacks if they have to, and they'll learn from that. But she did fine. She kept her scholarships and stuff like that. So, but it did first semester. She was, I think sometimes she wanted to grab me by the neck and choke me, which I don't blame her, but. But yeah, that's probably my lesson. And hopefully with my second daughter, when she goes off to college, I will start much better off that way.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And before we move to Lana and the Warwick to close out, I did want to touch on, Lana, if you could just touch on Greek life. A parent has a question about the culture of Greek life. I know that right now, roughly 24% of our student body population is Greek, so it is a pretty big thing at Georgia Tech. However, if your student isn't Greek or has no interest, there are several different organizations and clubs that you can get into. But Lana, if you could just touch on what has Greek life been for your student, the culture?
Well, I didn't know anything about sororities, and her dad hadn't been in a fraternity, so she did not rush her freshman year. It just wasn't a thing in our family. So she decided as a second-year student, after having seen what Greek life was like and having friends in it, that she would want to rush. And for her, it's been a very good experience. I also sort of like that first year made really a lot of friends, because he has said that some of the girls that get in sororities literally like before school practically starts don't know as many other people. And because she wasn't in a sorority her first year, she did get to know really a lot of people, and then kind of now has sort of best friends in the sorority. In terms of the culture, we don't come from a super affluent background. One of my concerns was, would there be expectations beyond what we could afford? And that hasn't been super problematic. It has not been problematic. And I was also concerned about, let's face it, about drinking, about alcohol abuse and hazing and those things. And she has told me many times that hazing in particular at Georgia Tech is simply not tolerated. And so she has not had any experience bad whatsoever, nor does she know any guys or girls who have. And the drinking, as far as underage drinking goes, at least in her sorority, they are locked down about it. There's no fooling around. I think that they have a lot to lose by allowing any kind of underage drinking, problems of that nature. And so it has been very supervised. I've been comfortable.
Great, great. And just to kind of close out with our last question, what is a piece of advice looking back on it? What is something that you have done differently looking back on your daughter's first year?
I would say two things that I wanted to say. One is that we didn't give a shout out to the health center. And when you're far away and your child gets ill, it's a really helpless feeling. And she got strep throat her first year. Not that uncommon, I came to understand, because they're working themselves really hard and not sleeping enough. And she went over to Stamps and got excellent care, had no trouble making an appointment, pharmaceuticals right there, took our insurance. I mean, everything about it made me feel better for the rest of her time there, since she's far away from any doctors that we knew. The second thing that worked for us, it wasn't that it didn't, it did work, is that as an out-of-state parent, we always knew when we would see her again. So when we dropped her off or she flew away, then we said, okay, we will see you at, the Wednesday of Thanksgiving or Parents' Weekend or this and that. For me, and I think for her first year also was something to hold on to, that at such and such a time, either we would be coming or she would be coming home. So those would be my two pieces of first year advice.
Great, great. Those are great nuggets. And lastly, to the Warwicks, as we mentioned that you were all in many of these parents' shoes this time last year. So looking back on it, fresh in it, what would you say that you would have done differently throughout the Peyton's first year?
Well, I'll start. I don't know about differently. I would suggest this to all the parents. Alex is talking about kids eating healthy. Georgia Tech has great elevation changes. Make sure your children have excellent walking shoes. They are going to get exercise. My daughter tried to push me away from. I'm like, no, you need 2 pair of running shoes to walk in. You're going to love me for it afterwards, and she does. So the only other thing I would say is be prepared to take some clothes home. There's not much closet space in the dorms.
in ours anyway.
At least for us, there wasn't. So be prepared to try to figure out that matrix of where you're going to put all the clothes. But, we talk about eating healthy, and I think it's a great stress reliever. The kids walk into campus, walking on campus, I should say, and getting the class, the elevation changes. She shared with me, I'm tired. I said, it's a good thing. It's a good tired. I go, you need that exercise if you can't get in the gym. And she eventually got in the gym, and I would encourage your kids, if they are so inclined to train, there's gym time available if they want to get in there. There's plenty of time.
Great. Royce, did you want to add something, or pretty much good?
No, I've kind of covered it throughout. It's just it was a good experience, and I did find myself, despite what people had said about you got to stay focused, and you do. I really wanted her, Peyton, to expand her community by joining certain groups, right, and being involved and striking that balance between the intensity of the academics and also enjoying college life, because it's fantastic, and just finding that balance. And so helping with that and watching her kind of handle that has been a great thing.
Awesome. Great. Well, it sounds like all of your students are doing really well. I would like to personally thank you all for offering your time and your experiences to our parents here today. If you're a parent, before I give closing remarks, and you've learned something here today, felt today was positive, drop a Go Buzz in our event chat box. If you're a parent, just drop a Go Buzz in there if you felt today was useful. But as I begin to close, if you, like I said earlier, if you need anything, our office, the Parent and Family Programs Office, is here to support you. If you have questions about things that were talked about here today, please feel free to email us at parents@gatech.edu. If you would like to be connected to one of our panelists here today to chat a little bit more, or perhaps connected to one of our parent ambassadors, please feel free to reach out to us via email as well. We have parent ambassadors who are here to support worldwide that kind of do what we're doing here today, sharing experiences, just talking about tips and tricks on what it's like to be a parent at Georgia Tech. And lastly, I did want to let everybody know that this fall, we are cognizant that we are not in person. So FASET orientation is looking very different. So one of the things that we're doing in our office is that we're creating webinar series. And so in the fall, we will have different webinar series featuring campus safety. So we'll have Georgia Tech Police. We'll be featuring dining, housing, mental health. We'll be touching on different topics through a webinar form that will be available to you all. And so that it'll be another resource. So we know that many of you will have questions all throughout the school year. Different things will come up with your students that will just kind of catch you off guard, but don't worry. We're here to support and we're here to help. So as I begin to close, I would just like to say thank you all for attending. Best of luck to you the rest of the summer, and go Jackets. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tyler.
Thanks.
All right, Tyler.
Well,
They cut him off.
Oh. They muted you.
Lacey, you can stop the broadcast.
Okay, just making sure that you mentioned the webinar information. Thank you.
Yeah, I did.